Welcome to your iconic image. If you want to take control of your image and be a power player in your space, then this is the show for you. Here we will arm you with tools and information to help you grow your brand on purpose. I'm your host, Marlana Semenza, photographer and visual strategist. Now let's dive into today's episode. Martin Brossman is a leading authority on building a positive digital presence. A dynamic trainer known for his insight and humor, Martin is a popular speaker on effective online reputation enhancement and professional development topics. Welcome, Martin.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks.
I'm excited to have you here. So today we're going to talk about 2 steps for success. And I know that in our initial conversation, we had talked about 2 different things, getting over perfectionism and letting go of the story in our head. So first, tell us, what is perfectionism and how does that hurt us?
Where the best way to explain it is where I saw it showing up coaching highly competent, extremely hardworking people that came from jobs where they were paid a set salary. So they could, no matter if they worked 100 hours, it was the same as if they worked 40 hours. And what they got in the habit of is the luxury of going for what they called perfection. So everything had to be perfect, and they were generally almost working themselves to death anyway. And in having your own business, that became a big problem because you have to know the difference between making it very accurate and good enough to get out the door. I'll give a good example. If you were a graphic designer, you probably should spend quite a bit of time on your first impression of images for graphic design. That's where I would say perfectionism probably should be spent. I mean, that's where you really want to do it. Or a musician on their showcase piece to be sold. And then learning to let some of the other things go is critical because our time really is money. And in making a business sustainable, you have to have a balance between those two. Good enough and get it out the door, and where do I need to stop and make it more accurate? And this seems to be something that's almost a core value that really is hard for people moving that were competent in day job moving into entrepreneurship or self-employment. Setting those boundaries good enough, we got to draw a line and get it out the door.
Do you think that perfectionism sometimes can be self-sabotage to keep us from moving forward as far as, okay, well, it's not perfect yet, so I'm not going to release it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the aim, consider firing someday type of approach. Yeah, because we don't have to, it also can be used as a tool to not have to face failure. And, one of the most important muscles to develop as being unstoppable is the ability to fail and recover quickly. And you only do that by failing. Now, you shouldn't go out and fail. Life will give plenty of opportunities to do it. But it's fail fast, fail often is often something I found from the smartest entrepreneurs I'd meet, in that taking small calculated risk where you can afford the consequences and learning from them quickly. Now, I don't mean recklessness in any of this, but this is another cloaked way of being able to avoid facing failure. And one of the clients I remember working with who wrote a book, he says, I didn't look at my Amazon reviews because some people don't like my book. And I said, when I'm done, you're going to be excited that someone criticized you. And he is. That he goes, hey, so let me tell you what they called me today. Here's what it is. And that type of unstoppable all weaves into this in working with clients and getting it built up. Now, it doesn't mean in those moments of failures, you don't have an experience of, oh no, or a disaster or whatever else. It's just moving through them quicker. So yes, perfectionism is also a tool for hiding out. And this is very common where you want to get somebody looking at a business. How can we get them to take small calculated risk where they'd have a chance to fail and help them recover quickly from it?
And also too, I think a lot of people get stuck on criticism, but not all criticism is bad, because when you get feedback and you get criticism, then you also know where the holes are that you need to plug up or shore up.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I guess one person called that a demand for coaching is a way of framing it. But also don't deny yourself the fact that it might not feel good. It's okay. It doesn't feel good. It's okay that you're getting some data in. It's okay you got knocked off the horse. It's okay you're embarrassed that it occurs. And then how do we recover and get from it? That's where we find it. We live in a world of biased shadows that we biologically can only perceive so much data. We're going to leave stuff out and we're affected by it. So if we don't understand that, then it's really pretty dangerous in the world. It's kind of like manic optimism has the risk of deleting critical data, just as extreme pessimism or realism. Either of these extremes have major problems in seeing what's going on in the world and being able to make good decisions.
So if we suffer from perfectionism, how do we get over it?
When I work with people on it, it's really getting them to start identifying with something greater and a commitment instead of perfection. So the commitment in getting it out the door, the commitment in making sure that they're providing win-win experience. And they're often, in perfectionism in business, it's win and they're losing and they don't realize it. So thinking, what does real win-win look like? So it's moving, you have to move from identifying with whatever part of you is connected to that perfectionism and give it something else to identify with, and then start feeding that new system. And no, may never go away. It may just, I'm back there again, and I have to recover. I'm back there again. I have to recover. And being aware of the signs that you're now stuck in a perfectionistic loop.
So then let's go into the next thing about letting go of the story in our head, because how does perfectionism play into that? Or does it play into that?
It can. It depends on your makeup and how you self-identify. And I think the challenge of who we identify as ourselves is one of the biggest problems. The challenge of, because most of us built our identity, to the most part, under 10 years old. So at one point I thought I need to make a bumper sticker that said, be anything but yourself, it'll be an upgrade. Because I really believe we're operating out of the decision of a 9-year-old most of the time on the planet as a human race. And this thing we think is our identity is something that was built before we were mature enough to know what it is. And it's running us like a program. So the conversations ahead are driven, I believe, at the peak of identification. And then you have to decide, what am I identifying with? Well, the problem with that is if you're identifying with just whatever emotions you're having at the time, those are really hard to deal with, in a sense of you're just going to experience them. Like if I see you and you remind me of, my cousin that I liked or didn't like, I'm going to get triggered for some way. So what is sustainable over time is what we're going to be committed to identifying with as the beginning. So we can start building an identity beyond a 9-year-old to have a reference point. And I think without it, we're pretty much not going to mature at all. It's just not going to happen. Not that I'm trying to put myself out as any pillar of maturity. Let's not go there. I'm a work in progress. But I was blessed with the challenge in life that in 4th grade, there was something wrong. My mother went to the principal, and I remember hearing her say things like, but have you seen him talk to adults? Have you ever seen him interact with adults? And I didn't know what was going on. But at the time, the only tutor that the school had was the one working with the special needs kids, which tragically back then we called the retarded kids. And we weren't just unfair, we made fun of them. Mm-hmm. We were cruel. I was then moved out of my class to work with that woman, and I made a very big decision. There was something critically wrong with me because I was put in the retarded class. That was a pivotal decision in how I identified with myself. Now, other things that occurred, but that was a real pivotal decision. And from there, I then was diagnosed with dyslexia, and then as an adult with what they call ADD and so forth. But what happened is that identification. And that was one of the greatest blessings, because I, through that lens, believed I was intrinsically broken and there was no way out. And then I finally realized that the only way out was I had to identify with something other than the concept in my head of I'm too stupid to be alive. It took a while to become conscious of that. And I took a lot of personal development training and others, but I went, oh my gosh, the background routine running in my head is you're too stupid to be alive. There are going to be people in white coats come, knock on the door and say, we're here for you, and we're going to take you away. That was, and I mean, think how silly that is, but most of us have something like this. And so then I realized unless I built something else to identify out of, there was no way out, because everything I do would be try to solve that. And of course, in Westworld, in the replicas and stuff, they have a pivotal tragedy often in their life that's key for their identity. And then they're sentenced to it. So that's why I believe that to really disrupt that conversation, and this is all based on a human being that is functioning well. And I don't mean any severe biochemical problems, severe depressions. None of this applies to that. So I really want to have compassion. There are other variables here. Who are you going to identify as you moving forward can give you a level of consistency over time. And that's how you can get some room from that conversation in your head. But if you don't, I think many of us, if they're winning with that and whatever they did then consistently wins, then they're stuck in the sentence of being that way their entire life. So that's why I mean it was the greatest thing that could happen. And it's almost like the idea of denying our children wounds denies the potential of their growth. Those are the things. It's when we transform those are the things. Some of the most amazing people I've met in my life, when you learn about their childhood, you want to just say, how'd you ever survive it?
Yeah.
So when we deny our kids wounds, we deny them the chance of real growth in life. So this ties into this idea of the conversations ahead. And to me, the perfectionism is just a manifestation of probably a decision made by a 7 or 9-year-old you're still living out that's running you like a routine out of control.
So how did you realize that that was the story that was going on in your head? And how do we come to realize the story that's playing out for us?
I think that's a great question. And when I'm coaching people on it, my gift is I hear it in other people. When I work with them, I go, I think I hear this thing going on. And the only ability is, since coaching is not therapy, so if it's a traumatic, it must go to another domain. But just like, what do you think of it? Try this on, see what occurs. But the first thing is just start noticing. It's like trying to catch something in the shadows and notice, where's this coming from? It's like an inquiry without judgment that's needed to look at it. See, if you look at it as I'm intrinsically bad, then your unconscious mind is going to hide it relentlessly. You'll never see it. But if you come from a perspective of compassionate observer, which is something was very important for me to do and create in my head for dealing with the ADD phenomenon, because it was like, a friend once said, you're into something different each time, and I don't know which Martin's showing up now, because I didn't know the switch had occurred. So I had to develop a committed, compassionate observer for myself and name it. So, and I'll give mine was specifically okay, if I'm too stupid to be alive and I can't see a way to keep living like that, and I can't see a way to end my life. This was when my practice marriage ended and I was moving on with my life and I was in a really low place. And so I went, well, I can't figure out how to end it. I can't make it work. What if I made up that I'm smart enough sometimes? What if I picked a commitment to live out of that I said, even if I failed at it, that would be a noble life for me.
Mm.
And that's where I came up with the idea that my own life I wanted to commit to was to being a catalyst for other people's living lives where they, on their deathbed, were moved to tears by their own life.
Mm.
That's what I wanted to be. If I was that, that'd be great. Well, how do I know? You don't. There's no way. There's no way to determine you do or not. Okay, then I'm going to give up judging. At the end, I'll look back and I'll either succeed or fail. And if I failed, how would I feel? Well, still, he made the effort. You see what I mean? I mean, I'm giving you kind of the argument of it. So the beginning is to be suspicious of your own kind of shadow, not in a judgmental way, but in a way of just thinking, okay, chances are who I think I am, it's like we're over obsessed with this concept of be yourself. I mean, if I said, hey, don't forget to be a 7-year-old. Yeah, you need to be a 7-year-old. I mean, that's what I hear when someone says, be yourself. What the heck is that? Where'd you make that decision? Most under the age of 10. So your big brother succeeded in athletes, so you're going to be a comedian. It was some childhood decision. So why don't you pick as adult what you want your life to be committed to? And then in grounded ways, start collecting evidence on it. The movie The Beautiful Mind is one of my favorites as a metaphor for this. And why it is it's about a story of a Nobel Peace Prize person who had schizophrenia and he had hallucinations that were running his life. And then in the end, the hallucinations weren't running his life, but they didn't leave. That's the gold. See, I'm not listening to you anymore. And that to me was the gold in the movie. It's not about eliminating. It's almost like having a great opponent on a tennis court that's never going away. And if you get they're not going away and appreciate them, then you will become a better tennis player.
Mm.
So this is part of the system. And what gift it gave me is when I work with someone, my mind builds, I call it like this holographic model in my head of their reality. And I go, whoa, that's a wall that we aren't going to get around. That's a wall that is outside the scope of something I could deal with, But this, they have a habit of moving their hand like this. Why don't we put a hammer in here and see if we can get some nails done instead of complain about this? So it's starting to accept what's there and go, okay, what can I do with this system? What am I committed to? And how do I begin to be compassionately suspicious of my automatic behaviors? I know those are funny words, but this is kind of my system I built from it.
So is it looking at something that we perceive per se as a weakness and realizing how to turn it into a strength? Or is it looking at that perceived weakness and saying, I recognize that I do this or I have this, but instead I'm going to replace it with this?
Yeah, well, first, the most efficient thing is how can I use it as a resource? I mean, I used comedy as a survival technique. If I'm too stupid to be alive, then I'm going to be funny. Well, I don't want to lose that. I just want to be in charge of when I bring it out.
Right.
I mean, what a great gift. I mean, I'm sometimes amazingly funny. I mean, when I'm training, I get people laughing, and you have this kind of, I have this range between being evocative and provocative, and I want to stay over in the evocative. Once in a while I cross and I have to apologize in life, but it's kind of this domain in my mind to evoke humor and I was actually given the governor's award for taking humor to cancer patients with Carolina Health and Humor, the volunteer of the year. So, I don't want to lose that.
Right. So then how do we start to rewrite our story? Because with what you said earlier, it sounds like in the beginning, we were almost like the passenger in the car. And instead, we need to put ourselves in the driver's seat so we can, we still have the vehicle, but at least we're steering it where it needs to go.
I think it's more like we're at the back of the bus and everyone else is controlling the driver. I think it's far worse than that. So the first question is, if this becomes a problem, and I really want to get, not everyone has this as a problem. If someone hears this and they go, that's me. Okay. Right. I don't believe we're all the same. I don't believe, my beautiful bride is happy to have her family love her and her mission. There's a support that she loves, that she doesn't. I for years wanted to go, don't you want to be out front? What? No, she knows what she loves. So it's not for everyone. So the beginning is asking yourself questions like, what do you want to leave this world? What do you want your life to be about? If it was a blank canvas, what would you want it to be about? And then let's start there. What do you want people to say about you when you're gone? Do you want it to be a thumbprint that's a smudge someone has to clean off, or this beautiful little art that will glow for a while and then fade away? So I think I'm paraphrasing what I believe is a Martin Heidegger quote, that we really are never fully alive till we embrace our own mortality. In fact, when my dad was worried about the gravesite. He's passed on, being taken care of. I said, let's just pay and get it done. You have the money now, do it. And we did it. And he said, well, I'm getting your graves done too. Well, that was kind of weird, but there's a stone with my name on it. Luckily, only one side, my birth date's there. The other is empty right now. And I took a moment when I was there, and this was so strange. I was dating Barbara at the time. I go, I'm going to take a moment, and I'm going to go over to my grave and be present to this is where it ends. Mm. And really be, and I think we're so afraid of our immortality that we don't face it, and we're not really alive. Mm. We're kind of in this walking sleep of, well, at least I'm not thinking about death. Versus now there are people that obsess about it, and that's not well either, But, I took the moment standing there, looking at my gravestone and going, this is it. Mm. This is where it ends. What am I going to do until I get here? I don't know when I'm going to get here, but what am I going to do in that time period? And it was amazing how freeing that was and the effect. So part of it is, sometimes people need to do this with someone, but kind of like face that and go, what do I want to do? And understand that ways of expressing something, let's say you have a special needs child, you're a single mother, and you want to be an astronaut. Okay, what's underneath that? What's the essence of it? What's accessible? What is that draw? What can I do today within my means that can move towards that or to address it? How can I experience some of that now? So it's all generally within means, can work with almost anyone. I mean, there are extremes in life of poverty and other things, but I've had experiences of seeing some extreme poverty of people way happier than people with a lot more money.
How much of our decisions, whether it be in life or in business, do you believe we make out of fear?
How much of our decisions do we make out of fear? A great deal. And that's why we do need to create a certain level of in our body groundedness. For me, with the phenomenon of ADD, when I got the anatomy of it, I felt like I was disassociated out of my body to a certain extent. Now, going down this realm, you have to be careful, and this often goes into the area of therapy. So just know, some people are out of their body for a good reason and shouldn't be back there until they have a therapist in front of them. So I just want to caveat there are real traumas that occur. But but learning to associate more into my journey of associating more into my body was a beginning way to reduce fear, because when we're in the moment, there's a lot less fear than we're in a possible bad future. That concept of be here now. Now, one of the people who had a big influence on me was Robert DeRope in The Master Game. And he came from a kind of a strange world of Ouspensky and Gurdjieff, but his is we're in a walking sleep state and we never wake up without intentional work. That concept was very useful for me dealing with my learning challenges. What if I treat these learning challenges as a sleep state? Then what would it take to wake up? And what it would take is working more on what does it take to be here in the moment. And then because we seem to be hardwired for a sense of future, a commitment of a future to help ground me in the present. Because just being in the moment, I did met a lot of different types of meditation and other things, and I couldn't get there without a future. Some people can. Just be here now. I needed a sense of there's a future to be in the present. Sounds funny, but that was a very important piece for me.
Mm. And also, I wanted to ask you something that I had thought of earlier. And what role when we're talking about criticism, what role do other people play in the story that we put into our heads?
The fact of it is a great deal. And it's not going to go away, and don't expect it to go away. What you can do is maneuver yourself around to minimize the influence. That's why often when people are setting goals for their future, sharing them with their family may not be the best starting place. Because the people might have good intentions, but they also have an image of where they think you should be.
Mm-hmm.
So it's often best to build these with people that are safe. And sometimes these are strangers, that they don't know. It's been, someone that's not going to say, okay, well, great idea, jump off the cliff and your parachute should open. I think that's a great, someone grounded in reality. But the key of it is they're not going to go away. It's going to be, how do we maneuver ourselves and our environment to make our life work in relationship to them. And the other thing that's really amazing is how many times in life I've seen where someone actually changed a core belief. They just said, I'm going to do it differently. And then other people changed. I'll share an example. I led a men's group in my house for years, and a guy came to us called the Men's Inquiry, and it was different topics. And a guy at the end of the meeting said, every morning I get up and yell at my kids. And then in the meeting, he came up with the idea, I'm going to be committed that I have great kids. And I'm just not going to participate in that. And then I didn't think about it. I got a call a week later, and he says, we've had no arguments. Now, is this going to happen every time? No, but I've seen enough of that to go, don't underestimate that we're co-connected together. Now, the other thing is I've had a young man that was kind of ADD, and we're working on coaching with goals, and we got him to find a simple system to be accountable. When he said, consider it done, he did, and then that got him in trouble because he didn't do it. And so we changed his behavior, and some people were just on a war path. And when he sat down and worked, I said, you've taken away their scapegoat. They're in trouble because now their incompetency will be seen by the manager. So this isn't always a smooth path, And luckily, in our working together, I go, look, we're going to do the compassionate thing, but you need to start building a pathway to the person who can hire and fire you, so that person can't take you out.
So in all these things that we've discussed, because I know everybody has their own version of success and what will make them successful. So how do we really determine our own?
Well, I find the simple ask of what do you want to leave this world is often a really good starting place for most people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what do you want? And, you know, my wonderful wife, I mean, we talk about everything, and she would probably just say, this sounds, supporting me and my stepson and feeling loved by us,
Mm.
and it took me a while to accept what that might be okay. You know what I mean? It's like, that would be okay. I mean, I was not accepting it, at first, and creating. She likes just creating. So really being honest about what that looks like. And she came to a realization that was part of her core mission. And
Mm.
and it took me a while to accept that. Like, well, don't you want more? And wow, how blessed I am.
Yeah.
Let's cherish this and appreciate it. So the looking at your mortality is often a good reflection, but sometimes you need to do it with someone because it's kind of scary.
Mm-hmm.
And then ask what do you want to leave as a start, and then the big thing is, can I transform it? Can I change it, or can I choose it? There's some things that you're beating against, some doors you're beating against and trying to push open, and the sign says pull. you know
Mm.
so you have to make some evaluations, and I've worked with some things. You need to go, okay, I am not going to be 9-2. And I'll tell you something interesting. I talked to a nurse that had worked in plastic surgery. It wasn't from accidents. It was from people getting it. And she said something fascinating. The more they changed, the more their soul seemed to die.
Hmm.
And that really aligns with my idea of, not accepting what you are and what you have
Hmm.
is not necessarily a good pathway. Just because you can change. It was just really got my attention. She said had seen thousands of people, and we're not talking about accident reconstruction or birth defect or things like that, but where
Mhm.
they're like, well, I just don't like the way I look, and I
Yeah.
must change X, and must change X, and must change X. She said you just looked at them, and it's like their soul was dying
Wow.
each time. Which would be aligned with my statement. Choose what you have. It's
Mm-hmm.
a very powerful thing to learn to do. What can you control? I've known so many people who've gone through like the AA program and their great quotes of what can I choose? I don't remember it, but a dear friend one time gave me one of these coins he got for being sober, and it's on my sacred area in the house. But it's the idea of what can we choose, what can we can't, what are we committed to, how are we gonna, what works for us, and
Mm.
and then what would be a life that we would be proud of that we lived. See, that takes us out of how do I feed my latest addiction? How do I just make me feel good today? It's no, there are a lot of days in that world that aren't comfortable,
Mm.
but they can be more meaningful. One of my other quotes is sometimes when your life feels meaningless, it might be because it is. You're so self-absorbed in your own stuff. I figured out a long time if my life was just about me, I couldn't see how it would be meaningful.
Mm. Love all that. Is it sometimes too about not looking at the step in front of you, but keeping your eye on the end goal?
Yes, and there's an important piece. It's like, how do you build your life so you can keep it in this cloud of possible vision, but also make sure you're not stepping off a cliff.
Mm-hmm.
So it does have a simultaneous containment required, and those, and then what? Yeah, both.
Yeah.
So it's what are you committed to? What are you focused on? What are you working on? And then how are we doing? We do need to kind of keep score. How are we doing in not stepping off a cliff or falling down steps or something like that?
So, what would be the piece of advice you would give to people for the one thing that they can do to start now?
The one thing is take a little time and evaluate what you want your life to be about. What type of life do you want? Now, that only works if what I've said seems to draw you in to hear more of it. Again, this is not one size fits every human being.
Right.
But really, what do you want your life to be about? And then, okay, we've got to take care of the lights. Most of us have to deal with this thing called money. We have to, and then let's just start with what do you want to be about? And then I love people writing it down completely or describing it or making a board or something, getting it out. There's a wonderful waitress, and I hope she hears it. She'll know who I am, where she has some business dreams of working, where I like to have breakfast. And I say, write it all out. And she goes, well, I wanted to do this, and then it formed over to this. And I've got like 10 pages I want to show you when I get it. I go, great. This is a safe space to just give yourself permission. What do I really want to do? What would I like? And then we have to match it into the world and our commitments and responsibilities and choose. What are we going to do and what are we not going to do with it?
Love that. And with that, Martin, I just have 4 final questions for you.
Okay.
The first one is, what's the best piece of advice you were ever given?
It's hard to point down, but okay, the best decision I ever did was marrying my wife, Barbara. But the best decision I made is I'm going to live my life as though I make a difference, and I'm not keeping score to the end.
Mm. Yep. Share with us one on your bucket list.
Bucket list. Right now, one of them is to get my next men's book out, and I'm both concerned and scared because it's like, are we even allowed to talk about men embracing being men today? It seems to be. Will I bring it out? And I've got someone working on it slowly. That's excellent. She's a survivor of a assault related to men. So having someone work on that is great, and she said this still needs to get out because maybe this wouldn't have happened if this book existed. So that's in the works, but I'd like that. That would be something I really want to get done and move it out slowly. I think we're having a tough time as a human race of being compassionate and not swinging to extremes, and it's like, and then I'd love to, on the bucket list, see the aliens come down and say, hey, straighten yourself out or I'm going to smack you around. I'd enjoy seeing that. I think we all need like a little more compassion and understanding, and I live by. My message today is be careful what you hate because you'll probably become it, and I see that constantly all over the place. So yeah, that's it.
So when the toy companies finally get around to making an action figure of you, what 2 accessories?
Oh gosh! Oh wow! Well, right now I'd probably want a tool that would cause leaders to do the right thing and have to be honest. I think that would be a good one. They couldn't actually tell white lies. They're locked in. I just can't, I'm doing this because I want you to like me and I really don't understand what I'm talking about. That if I could have one, I I see it on the news and it's all sides, folks. It's zap. And then they go, oh, I can't justify things anymore. That would be probably at the moment my biggest one. My little gun is like, oh, boop. And the other side, boop. They're locked like when they're a Jim Carrey movie where I can't lie. They're stuck in that. They're just like, there's no way to get into politics where you can't do anything but tell the truth. That would be it.
And last one, Martin, where do people find you?
Google my name. They can find it, Martin Brossman. And I have a site, Martin Brossman and Associates, and then a coaching site, coachingsupport.com and Martin Brossman Speaks for Speaking. But they're all on Martin Brossman Associates. Scroll down and all the different projects are on there. So, yeah. And I just want to really thank you for what you're doing. You're doing such great stuff. I want to tell people, take some time and like and comment and share your shows. They're fantastic. I mean, you're really doing great work in the world of interviewing and great work in setting it up. And I want to thank you for what you're contributing to the world, where people need something positive. They need ideas, and they really need something other than the next thing to hate.
Well, thank you so very much, Martin.
That. Yeah.
And I thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for joining us. Once again, I'm Marlana Semenza, photographer and visual strategist. Please comment, like, or share this episode, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. For more information on how I can help you create your iconic image, visit marlanasemenza.com.